simply unattainable, unimaginable for far too many Canadians to ever own a place. Leave owning a place, many people can't even find a place that they can afford to rent. We know that money laundering has pumped $7 billion through BC, $100 million into drug sales. It's fueling crime, it's endangering public safety, and of course it's driving up the cost of housing. We know that right now, a 29-year-old millennial who wants to buy a home would have to wait 29 years before he or she had enough money to be able to actually put down a down payment. Now, while we're seeing this economy that seems rigged more and more to help out those at the very top, to help out the powerful, the multi-billionaires, the wealthy corporations, the result is that economy is hurting people. And BC is struggling with over 16 years of BC Liberals who have continued that same trend, made it harder for everyday families and easier for the rich and wealthy. And on top of that, we're faced with one of the most urgent crises. That means that young people are worried about their future. You know, young people, instead of having hope and optimism in their eyes, are filled with fear and despair because they're worried about what's going to happen to the planet. The climate crisis that is gripping the entire world is felt here in BC in a tremendous way. We know that in the past, forest fires have become more and more severe, more and more extreme, and it's meant that on many days, people like that young kid can't even breathe the air. And that is serious. Donc, qu'est-ce qui se passe ici? On a plus en plus une économie qui travaille pour les plus riches, mais qui ne fonctionne pas pour monsieur, madame, tout le monde. Et le reste d'entre nous a l'impression que les choses n'avancent pas pour nous, pour les gens, mais ça avance pour les plus riches. Now, Trudeau has said a lot of pretty words and a lot of empty promises. He said that he's going to tackle the climate crisis. He gets that there's an emergency, that he's going to defend our air and our land and our water. But what does he do? He meets with energy lobbyists. In the past 4 years, he's met with them over 1,500 times. And as a result, the outcome of that is he's bought a pipeline for $4.5 billion, and he's failed to end fossil fuel subsidies, something that he promised to do. He said he would make medication more affordable, but instead of helping people out, he would rather protect the profits of the multinational pharmaceutical companies. He'd rather protect big pharma than help people. And that's why that young man's crying. Because it's unfair. And now Mr. Trudeau makes another phony promise with a fake pharmacare plan that's not going to actually address the problem. We have no confidence that he's not going to just listen to the pharmaceutical lobbyists when they come knocking on his door again. And you know, to build that, it's no surprise that Mr. Trudeau has recruited as one of his star candidates, Terry Lake in Kamloops. Now, you'll know that Terry Lakes was one of Christy Clark's ministers, Minister of Health. Minister of Health when the BC Liberal government was fined $16 million because they essentially violated the Canada Health Accord, the Canada Health Act, by allowing private services, fee-for-services, to exist in the province, violating our public commitment to public health care. Now, at the same time when the minister, Terry Lakes, was allowing private clinics to charge for services that should have been covered for free as a part of our healthcare system, the Christy Clark Liberal government gave $1 billion to the wealthiest 2%. So on one hand, fee-for-services for healthcare, and on the other hand, massive tax cuts for the wealthiest. That's what Christy Clark Liberals did, and that's Terry Lake, past Minister of Health, and that's Mr. Trudeau's star candidate. And we see the connection here. What we're going to announce today is our plan to tackle all these issues, starting with the healthcare system. Not only do we need to expand and invest in our healthcare system, we need to ensure that medication is covered. Under a new democratic plan, if you need healthcare, if you need medication, you should use your health card, not your credit card. Now, no other issue shows the pure neglect of the Liberal government to tackle the crisis. We talked about healthcare, we've talked about the environment. No other issue speaks directly to the pure neglect of this government than the housing crisis. Mr. Trudeau calls it a housing crisis and says that it's something that he needs to invest in, and effectively is investing 19% less than the Harper Conservatives as a percentage of GDP. That's no investment. And on top of that, one of the areas that is deeply concerning, we talk about money laundering, the BC government is doing its part. They're tackling the concern. They're fighting back. But at the federal level, not a single RCMP officer in the money laundering unit is actually working on money laundering. This is because the Liberals have not made it a priority. They talked about increasing some investments, but they haven't talked about how that's actually going to tackle the issue of money laundering. Now, this is a direct issue that the federal government can play a massive role in flagging, in identifying, and in ending. Yet, when we ask the Liberal government to enact something that BC has done, a beneficial ownership registry, which would effectively allow us to combat money laundering, Mr. Morneau, the finance minister, said, oh, that would be too difficult for corporations. It would put too much burden on them. Again, Mr. Trudeau and his government want to help out those at the very top, want to help out the oil and gas sector, and they want to help out the powerful corporations and not help out families. Justin Trudeau a des belles promesses, mais en fait, c'est des promesses vides. Aucun membre à ce moment de la GRRC affecté à lutter contre le blanchiment d'argent ne travaille dans les faits à lutter contre le blanchiment d'argent en Colombie-Britannique. Les libéraux ont choisi de rester les bras croisés. Encore des promesses dans l'air. Encore, on a l'impression que les choses n'avancent pas à Ottawa. Et vous payez le prix. Now, Mr. Scheer's no better. While Mr. Trudeau spent $4.5 billion on a pipeline, as we can see over here, Mr. Scheer has just presented a plan to tackle climate change, which was written by and for the big oil companies. Really, it's a plan that's going to help the big oil companies continue to make massive profits. They also failed to take on money laundering when they were in power, which has contributed to the problem that we're facing right now. And Harper's healthcare cuts that were presented by Mr. Harper and the Conservative government were effectively enacted by Mr. Trudeau. So Conservatives aren't going to tackle the healthcare problem. They don't think it's their problem to tackle. And on housing, just the same as healthcare, they don't think that they have anything to do with the problem. Just like Stephen Harper, just like Christy Clark, Conservatives cut services that your families need. They talk about tax cuts, but really it's going to cost families more. It's going to cost everyone more in the services that families won't be able to access. Now, despite the Conservatives' cut to services, the fact they continue to cut essential things like healthcare and education, the Green Party under Ms. May, despite the track record of the Conservatives, have said they're willing to make Mr. Scheer, Andrew Scheer, the next Prime Minister of Canada. I don't believe it has to be this way. I don't believe it has to be the way where governments in Ottawa make life easier for the wealthiest, continue to give billions of dollars to the powerful corporations. I want to change that. And I'm confident with my team, we can do that. We are in it for BC. We are in it for Canadians. This is a beautiful place and a special place, and that's why I'm proud to announce today our new deal for BC. Our new deal for BC means investments in healthcare, turning back the cuts under the Conservatives, continued by the Liberals. Our plan is to invest back into healthcare, to make sure we expand to include pharmacare for all, and also to ensure that the 4.3 million Canadians right now that earn less than $70,000 that have no dental care plan receive dental care plans, a dental care program immediately. And on the most pressing crisis that's affecting people in their lives right now, on housing, we've got 3 measures that we're announcing today, 3 bold measures to tackle the housing crisis here in BC. First off, we're going to make sure we work with the RCMP and to ensure that there's a dedicated fund and dedicated resources to tackle money laundering. This is going to be, we're going to put in place a $20 million investment and a specific targeted approach to tackling money laundering. And half of that investment would go specifically to BC to make sure we tackle that crisis and the money laundering that we know is going on right now. And secondly, we're going to put in place the beneficial ownership registry, which would effectively do this. It would ensure that those criminals that are using numbered corporations to hide their assets, to hide their ownership, they would be tracked and we would be able to clamp down on it. We would put that in place. Unlike Mr. Morneau, the finance minister, we don't believe in making life easier for the corporations. We believe in making life easier for people, and that's why we put this in place. And building on the great work that BC is doing already, they've also put in place this beneficial ownership registry. We want to build on that great work. We acknowledge that it's working. It's helping them crack down on money laundering. They've also done a bold thing with the foreign buyers tax. We know that that's driving up speculation. That's driving up the cost of housing. So to build on that at the national level, we would add an additional 15% foreign buyers tax to tackle the out-of-control skyrocketing price of housing. New Democrats would take the climate crisis seriously. We would listen to the thousands and millions of kids that are taken to the streets and demanding that leaders listen to them, demanding that leaders acknowledge that it's young people that are going to inherit a planet, that if we don't make the right choices now, we'll be a planet that is uninhabitable. So to those young people, I say to you, we take the climate crisis seriously and we are committed to taking bold action, not just pretty words, but real action, including immediately ending the fossil fuel subsidy, investing into clean, renewable energy, and a host of measures to tackle this crisis. Mes amis, on se bat pour vous. Le gouvernement de la Colombie-Britannique a été un chef de file pour la lutte contre le blanchiment d'argent et pour mettre en place des mesures pour rendre le logement plus abordable. Nous allons suivre le même chemin. Nous allons nous assurer que le GRC lutte concrètement contre le blanchiment d'argent avec une unité et des ressources spécialisées pour la Colombie-Britannique. Nous allons empêcher les criminels de cacher de l'argent sale dans l'immobilier et nous assurons que des compagnies ne puissent plus acheter des meubles de manière anonyme. Nous allons imposer une taxe de 15% aux acheteurs étrangers pour que les investissements immobiliers servent à se loger et non à spéculer. We've got 26 days left. We've got an incredible team here in BC. We've got an incredible team across Canada. We obviously need your help to bring in this change. We've got a new deal for BC. We've got a new deal for Canada. We've got a new deal for people. And that new deal is one that puts people at the heart of everything we do, that puts the climate crisis as a serious crisis, and we will respond to it with all of our force, that'll tackle housing, the housing crisis, and will invest in our healthcare. We can do this together. Mes amis, on peut ensemble faire face aux grands enjeux qui touchent le monde. On a la capacité de le faire parce qu'on se bat pour vous. We're in it for you. We're not in it for the people at the top. We're not in it for the wealthy and the rich. We're in it for you. We're going to fight for you. Thank you. Thank you. We'll take some questions.
Hi, Mr. Sagan. Annie Bertrand-Oliver with CTV National News.
Hi.
The Green Party has just come out with a PBO costed plan for what they're proposing, and in it includes pharmacare. They say a first-year pharmacare plan will cost $26.7 billion. Your pharmacare plan is estimated around $860 million. I'm wondering what you think about the differences here. That seems like a major contrast.
So our plan to build a pharmacare program would require a $10 billion investment from the federal government and then it would use the resources that are already being spent in each province. So each province already has a pharmacare program. And so we would ask to pool our resources together. So all of the funds that currently provinces are spending with what we're spending, the $10 billion that we would put forward, that would provide a pharmacare plan that we could do in 1 year. Now, other parties are talking about doing it in 10 years, making families wait. I've met families that spend thousands of dollars a month, in case thousands of dollars a year on pharmacare. To ask those families to wait 10 years is to ask them to feel the crushing weight of thousands and thousands of dollars for their medication that they can't afford. We want to do it right away. And you mentioned the $856 million. That's for our Dentacare program. That program is a plan that we want to put in place in 1 year, and that would cost $856 to cover 4.3 million Canadians. A very big contrast with the billions that Conservatives and Liberals spend on corporations. We want to spend it on people.
In the plan, they also talk about universal dental care, universal pharmacare, universal daycare. They also have a plan to tax the wealthiest. You heard yesterday at the town hall, a voter said she wasn't sure to vote Green or NDP. How do you differentiate yourself from the Greens, given that there are very many platforms, not just on the environment, but now social platforms that are extremely similar?
My plan is to tackle Mr. Trudeau. Our target is to form government in this province. We're not running for third place. We're running for forming government in Canada. On top of that, what's really clear is the Green Party does not have a solid position on a number of issues that are very important to Canadians. We believe very strongly in national unity. You know what you get when you vote for a New Democrat. That is not the same for the Green Party. They do not have a solid position on national unity. They say they're going to prop up Conservative government. They say they're open to working with a Conservative government that's made it clear that they cut services for families. And they don't have a solid position on a woman's right to choose. These are things that you know when you choose a New Democratic MP. You have someone who will fight unequivocally to always protect and expand services for a woman's right to choose, that'll always fight for social justice. People believe New Democrats when it comes to expanding healthcare. It was New Democrats that put in place national pharmacare, or national Medicare. It's going to be New Democrats that take the next step, the next bold step forward to ensure that everyone in our country has access to medication.
Mr. Singh, Mercedes Stephenson, Global News. As you know, we've done a lot on money laundering in our network, particularly here in BC. But one of the strains for the RCMP is resourcing of federal policing. So I'm wondering if you can give us a breakdown of where some of this money is going to go to when it goes to the RCMP, because you can establish the unit, but if there aren't the officers to staff it, you still have a problem.
You're absolutely right. And there was a question that I asked in the House of Commons directly to the Prime Minister, that there's a department that's set aside, but there's no staffing, and that no one was given the mandate. So we want to make sure that we are putting $20 million specifically to an anti-money laundering department that is funding staffing, so the RCMP officers at the federal level to track and to tackle money laundering. And we're going to allocate specifically $10 million to BC. And that's going to be focused on anti-money laundering activities, working and investigating here in BC to tackle the crisis.
But does that address the issue of staffing inside the RCMP if there's still a lack of officers?
Yes, well, we're saying we need the funds to hire the officers, and we're going to establish a fund specifically for money laundering that has a specific mandate to tackle that issue, and the money would go directly towards staffing up and making sure the resources are there.
Ashley Burke, CBC News. Where would the $20 million come from?
Again, we've got clear choices that we make. We can look at last year and give you a clear example of what Mr. Trudeau spent money on. Mr. Trudeau spent, in the last year as government, spent $14 billion on the wealthiest corporations to buy corporate jets and limousines. We wouldn't do that. They bought a pipeline for $4.5 billion. He wrote off corporate loans to the tune of $6 billion. These are just some of the decisions that Mr. Trudeau has made that have accumulated almost $25 billion in spending. None of that spending is what we would do as New Democrats. We would make better choices with our limited resources. We know that those resources are limited, but if we make better choices with them, we can actually prioritize things like money laundering. We would dedicate $20 million to fighting money laundering. It is a bare minimum necessity to do to tackle something so important.
BC already has this registry, so how is what you're proposing going to actually help people in BC drive down the price of housing here when it comes to the registry specifically? Well,
we know that at a national level, there's a lot of corporations that move between jurisdictions, that numbered corporations don't have to be limited to one province. What we're proposing is to tackle money laundering the best way to do that is to tackle it nationally. There's no way that you can control the flow of money. Money launderers don't recognize boundaries. They'll move between jurisdictions. And we've seen that already happen. When attempts were made to clamp down on money laundering in one jurisdiction, the criminals moved to other jurisdictions. So we're taking a national approach that'll build on the work that's already being done, provide more assistance, and with our foreign buyers tax, it'll ensure that people that are investing in one community don't just move down the road to the next province or down to the further province. We're going to tackle this at the national level.
Can I have it in French, please?
Sure. The last question? OK. Donc, ce que le gouvernement colombien-britannique a fait, c'est vraiment un travail acharné. Ils ont vraiment réussi à prendre des premiers pas et c'est formidable. On veut aider le gouvernement colombien-britannique parce qu'on sait qu'avec les criminels, ils ne respectent pas les juridictions. S'il fait quelque chose en une province, il peut démirer dans une autre. Aussi, c'est un enjeu qui est vraiment important d'avoir une approche nationale parce que avec le blanchiment d'argent, ça vraiment touche un enjeu national parce que les criminels peuvent utiliser leurs ressources pour démirer et bouger l'argent un côté à l'autre.
Très bien. Donc, Jérôme Labbé, Radio-Canada, le Parti vert a déposé ce matin son cadre financier. Comment se fait-il que le Parti vert est capable de dire nous allons revenir à l'équilibre budgétaire dans 5 ans et que le NPD n'est pas capable de fixer une date?
En fait, c'est pas crédible. On a vu que c'est un parti qui fait aussi des belles paroles, mais sans avoir des actions concrètes. Ce qu'on a vu, ils sont prêts d'appuyer les conservateurs. Donc, comment est-ce qu'on peut dire on est un parti progressiste si on est prêt de travailler avec un parti conservateur qui est ouvertement dans leur bilan des affaires toujours couper les services de santé, les services d'éducation. On a plusieurs exemples avec le gouvernement de Harper. Tous les gouvernements conservateurs coupent les services. Donc, c'est pas du tout crédible. On a une position claire. On va jamais appuyer un gouvernement conservateur parce qu'on sait qu'ils vont couper leurs services. Nos engagements sont crédibles. Nos engagements sont toujours basés dans notre croyance en toujours travailler pour monsieur, madame, tout le monde.
Une dernière question. Le gouvernement du Québec a reconnu aujourd'hui l'urgence climatique. En même temps, c'est un gouvernement qui est pour le troisième lien entre Québec et Lévis. C'est un gouvernement qui est pour GNL Québec, qui est un projet très polluant au Saguenay. Est-ce que, selon vous, le gouvernement du Québec est conséquent avec lui-même?
Si vous pouvez répéter la question encore.
Est-ce que le gouvernement du Québec a, selon vous, la crédibilité de déclarer l'urgence climatique alors qu'il appuie lui-même des projets polluants comme le troisième lien ou GNL Québec?
Donc, je pense que c'est une bonne nouvelle qu'ils ont reconnu l'importance de l'urgence climatique. Donc, ça, c'est bon. Mais les critiques sont là avec la troisième ligne, avec les autres projets qu'il appuie, qu'ils ne prennent pas, jusqu'à ce moment, ils n'ont pas pris des actions concrètes pour faire la lutte contre la crise climatique. Donc, ils ont donné un engagement, mais on n'a pas vu des actions jusqu'à ce moment ou des engagements clairs. Donc, on va voir ça. Mais au niveau fédéral, je peux s'assurer, les Québécois et Québécoises, qu'on a des engagements forts pour faire la lutte contre la crise climatique, pour réduire nos émissions de gaz à effet de serre.
Laura Kane, Canadian Press. On the foreign buyers tax, the BC tax still faces a proposed class action lawsuit filed by a Chinese citizen who both lived and worked and studied here, who scraped together the money for a down payment and then was hit with this unexpected enormous tax. She and others have said it discriminates against people based on where they're born. I'm wondering if you think that's an NDP value.
Well, what we're saying is that housing shouldn't be used as speculation. And we know that foreign buyers, foreign investments are coming into Canada to drive up the cost of housing. So if someone is a permanent resident, someone is a citizen, someone has made Canada their home, no matter where they're from, they of course should be able to buy a home without any barriers. But if someone has not chosen to make Canada their home, not a permanent resident, and not a citizen, then we want to make sure we're preventing the astronomical rise in housing, and we're seeing it's driven by a lot of foreign investment, and that's hurtful to Canadians, that's hurtful to the people of BC, because people can't afford a house that way. So we know we need to get at speculation, which is unsustainable, and that's what we are proposing to do.
Hi, Mr. Singh. Martin McMahon with News 1130. We've heard from the Conservatives that they are going to do an inquiry into this if they're elected. And excuse my ignorance, does your plan include an inquiry into money laundering?
Absolutely. We believe we need to do an inquiry. We need to clamp down on a number of things. One is why there hasn't been sufficient investigation into something that is so widespread and so commonly known. There's also been some concerns about a recent investigation and court case that was one of the major cases that cracked down on money laundering, but through some errors in the prosecution, the case failed, and we want to make sure that never happens again. Money laundering is a crucial issue here in BC. It is driving up the cost of housing. People say at least 5% of the increase in property prices has been attributed to money laundering. It could be a lot more. We need to take it very seriously.
I think the dollar figure the Conservatives are talking about is something like $20 million for that inquiry. Do you have a cost on what you estimate your inquiry would cost?
We haven't launched a cost on the inquiry. We know it's important to do. We need to get to the bottom of why there hasn't been investigations to this point. But we're also committing real dollars to tackling money laundering with a $20 million investment in the RCMP to ensure that there's staffing to tackle money laundering. At the federal level, there has not been anyone working on this file. We want to stop that. And we particularly want to make sure that people are working on the file here in BC. And that's why we're attributing half of the money that we're committing to BC to tackle the problem here.
Can you talk about today's announcement in Punjabi?
Sure. I did English and French and I can do Punjabi too. ਅੱਜ ਆਪਾਂ ਗੱਲ ਕੀਤੀ ਹੈ ਕਿ ਆਪਾਂ ਕਾਫੀ ਚਿਰ ਤੋਂ ਦੇਖਿਆ ਆਟੋਵਾ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਕਿ ਸਰਕਾਰਾਂ ਸਭ ਤੋਂ ਜ਼ਿਆਦਾ ਅਮੀਰ ਕੋਆਪਰੇਸ਼ਨ ਦੇ ਵਾਸਤੇ ਕੰਮ ਕਰ ਰਹੇ ਨੇ ਪਰ ਆਮ ਬੰਦਿਆਂ ਵਾਸਤੇ ਨਹੀਂ ਕਰ ਰਿਹਾ ਇਸ ਕਰਕੇ ਅੱਜ ਆਪਾਂ ਅਨਾਉਂਸ ਕੀਤਾ ਕਿ ਆਪਣਾ ਇੱਕ ਨਵਾਂ ਡੀਲ ਹੈ ਜੋ ਕਿ ਆਮ ਲੋਕਾਂ ਦਾ ਵਾਸਤੇ ਹੋਵੇ ਕਿ ਆਮ ਲੋਕਾਂ ਨੂੰ ਇੱਕ ਮੁੱਖ ਪ੍ਰਾਇੋਰਟੀ ਰੱਖ ਕੇ ਕਿ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਦੇ ਲਈ ਆਪਾਂ ਕਿੱਦਾਂ ਜ਼ਿੰਦਗੀ ਬਿਹਤਰ ਬਣਾ ਸਕਦੇ ਆ ਇਹਦੇ 'ਚ ਆਪਾਂ ਸਿਹਤ ਸੇਵਾਵਾਂ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਸਿਹਤ ਸਹੂਲਤਾਂ ਆਪਾਂ ਵਧਾਉਣਾ ਚਾਹੁੰਦੇ ਆ ਕਿ ਜੇ ਕਿਸੇ ਨੂੰ ਦਵਾਈ ਦੀ ਲੋੜ ਹੋਵੇ ਆਪਣੇ ਨਵਾਂ ਢਾਂਚੇ ਦੇ ਨਾਲ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਆਪਣਾ ਹੈਲਥ ਕਾਰਡ ਵਰਤ ਸਕਦੇ ਹੋ ਨਾ ਕਿ ਆਪਣਾ ਕ੍ਰੈਡਿਟ ਕਾਰਡ ਇਹਦੇ ਨਾਲ ਜਿਹੜਾ ਵੀ ਕਿਸੇ ਨੂੰ ਕੋਈ ਲੋੜ ਹੋਵੇ ਦਵਾਈਆਂ ਦੀ ਉਹ ਦਵਾਈ ਲੈ ਸਕਦਾ ਮੈਨੂੰ ਪਤਾ ਤੇ ਬੜਾ ਪਰੇਸ਼ਾਨ ਹੋਣਾ ਕਿ ਕਿੰਨੇ ਲੋਕ ਹੈਗੇ ਜਿਹੜੇ ਦਵਾਈ ਖਰੀਦ ਨਹੀਂ ਸਕਦੇ ਜਿਹੜੇ ਨਹੀਂ ਲੈਂਦੇ ਤੇ ਫਿਰ ਕੀ ਹੁੰਦਾ ਜ਼ਿਆਦਾ ਬਿਮਾਰ ਹੋ ਕੇ ਉਹ ਹਸਪਤਾਲ ਚਲੇ ਜਾਂਦੇ ਨੇ ਤੇ ਉਹ ਗੱਲ ਨੂੰ ਆਪਾਂ ਰੋਕਣਾ ਚਾਹੁੰਦੇ ਆ ਆਪਾਂ ਚਾਹੁੰਦੇ ਕਿ ਹਰੇਕ ਨੂੰ ਦਵਾਈ ਦਾ ਖਰੀਦਣ ਦਾ ਮੌਕਾ ਹੋਵੇ ਨਾਲ ਦੇ ਨਾਲ ਆਪਾਂ ਦੰਦਾਂ ਦੀ ਸੇਵਾਵਾਂ ਉਹ ਵੀ ਆਪਾਂ ਲੈ ਕੇ ਆਉਣਾ ਚਾਹੁੰਦੇ ਆ ਕਿਉਂਕਿ ਬਹੁਤ ਸਾਰੇ ਲੋਕ ਹੈਗੇ ਜਿਹਨੂੰ ਸਹੂਲਤ ਹੈ ਨਹੀਂ ਕਿ ਉਹ ਦੰਦਾਂ ਦੀ ਜੋ ਸਿਹਤ ਸੇਵਾਵਾਂ ਉਹ ਨਹੀਂ ਕਰ ਸਕਦੇ ਉਹ ਵੀ ਆਪਾਂ ਟੈਕਲ ਕਰਨਾ ਚਾਹੁੰਦੇ ਆ ਕਿ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਕੋਲ ਦੰਦਾਂ ਸੇਵਾਵਾਂ ਹੋਣ ਤੇ ਅੱਜ ਆਪਾਂ ਇਹ ਵੀ ਗੱਲ ਕੀਤੀ ਹੈ ਕਿ ਜਿਹੜੇ ਘਰ ਖਰੀਦਣਾ ਬੜਾ ਮੁਸ਼ਕਲ ਹੋ ਰਿਹਾ ਤੇ ਆਪਾਂ ਕੁਝ ਕਦਮ ਚੁੱਕਣਾ ਚਾਹੁੰਦੇ ਆ ਤਾਂ ਕਿ ਘਰ ਦਾ ਜਿਹੜੇ ਕੀਮਤਾਂ ਉਹ ਜ਼ਿਆਦਾ ਮਹਿੰਗੇ ਨਾ ਹੋਣ ਕਿ ਆਮ ਬੰਦਾ ਖਰੀਦ ਨਾ ਸਕੇ ਸੋ ਇਹਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਆਪਾਂ ਮਨੀ ਲਾਂਡਰਿੰਗ ਜੋ ਹੋ ਰਿਹਾ ਉਹਨੂੰ ਆਪਾਂ ਉਹਦੇ ਉੱਤੇ ਪਾਬੰਦੀ ਲਾਉਣਾ ਚਾਹੁੰਦੇ ਆ ਜੋ ਘਰ ਦੀ ਕੀਮਤ ਵਧਾ ਰਿਹਾ ਆਪਾਂ ਸਪੈਕੂਲੇਸ਼ਨ ਟੈਕਸ ਵੀ ਲਾਉਣਾ ਚਾਹੁੰਦੇ ਆ ਜੋ ਆਪਾਂ ਦੇਖ ਰਹੇ ਕਿ ਬਾਹਰਲੇ ਦੇਸ਼ਾਂ ਤੋਂ ਲੋਕ ਪੈਸੇ ਇੱਥੇ ਰੱਖਦੇ ਨੇ ਤੇ ਫਿਰ ਘਰ ਦੀ ਕੀਮਤ ਜ਼ਿਆਦਾ ਵੱਧਦੇ ਨੇ ਉਹਨੂੰ ਵੀ ਆਪਾਂ ਰੋਕਣਾ ਚਾਹੁੰਦੇ ਆ ਤੇ ਇਸ ਗੱਲਾਂ ਦੇ ਨਾਲ ਆਪਾਂ ਇੱਕ 5 ਲੱਖ ਨਵੇਂ ਘਰ ਵੀ ਬਣਾਉਣਾ ਚਾਹੁੰਦੇ ਆ ਜਿਹਦੇ ਨਾਲ ਆਪਾਂ ਇਹ ਆਮ ਬੰਦਿਆਂ ਵਾਸਤੇ ਆਪਾਂ ਬਣਾਉਣਾ ਚਾਹੁੰਦੇ ਕਿ ਉਹ ਘਰ ਖਰੀਦ ਸਕਣ ਆਪਾਂ ਆਮ ਲੋਕਾਂ ਵਾਸਤੇ ਕੰਮ ਕਰਾਂਗੇ ਆਮ ਲੋਕਾਂ ਦੇ ਵਾਸਤੇ ਆਪਣਾ ਮਕਸਦ ਆ ਤੇ ਇਕੱਠੇ ਹੋ ਕੇ ਆਪਾਂ ਇੱਕ ਸੋਹਣਾ ਬਿਹਤਰ ਭਵਿੱਖ ਬਣਾ ਸਕਦੇ ਹਾਂ Thank you very much. Thank you for all the questions. Thank you for being here. Thank you, everybody. You did a great job today.